Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to try to resist the urge to do a full sales pitch, but you are essentially going to leave this talk wanting to buy our product, so we will be at D3 to take your checks and cash at that stage. So Fortecho Solutions and what we do and how that impacts data gathering, intelligent building design, and the lowering of both carbon emissions and operational expenses in museums is what I'm going to be talking about mainly today. Our product covers all manner of things from security, protection, and preventative conservation, but the focus of today's talk will be predominantly around those aspects along with gathering data and deploying it effectively within the confines of a museum building. Whether you're a small regional museum, like one of our clients in Leicester, all the way up to one of the biggest museums in the world, the Louvre Abu Dhabi or the Getty in Los Angeles, or wherever you might be, you can use this system and this effective way of analyzing data and integrating it into your other systems to effectively control both your carbon emissions and your operational expense. So quickly on Fortecho and me. Fortecho has been working in the museum, cultural and heritage space for the last 25 years. Originally founded in 1996 and moving into working with museums in 2000 at the turn of the millennium. Over the last 20 or so years, we've expanded from working just here in London, where we're headquartered, to all around the world, from Sydney in Australia to the Getty in Los Angeles and everything in between. Our main focuses, I suppose, are North America, Europe, the Middle East and the UK, but as I say, we've worked with all sorts of weird and wonderful different institutions across the globe to help them effectively protect, secure and control the objects within their collection. We now have about 300 museum clients, and they range from the very, very small, protecting one or two particularly high value or high risk works of art, all the way through to looking after every work of art in one of the major international museums around the world. So the system is modular. It's not designed to be something that you have to deploy all at once at great expense. It's something that you can roll out effectively and begin your path towards using data and intelligent software to effectively control and protect the collection. So what is smart protection? Essentially, it's the use of the most modern and cutting-edge technology overlaced on top of the existing museum and heritage space. So we're enabling efficient and economical use of the resources at the museums, whilst creating a safe environment for the entire collection, whether that's a 10th century work of art from the Byzantine period all the way up to one of the more modern contemporary pieces that you simply want people not to touch. We can apply this level of technology and data and software to all of those variable situations. We have decided in more recent years, in the last 10 years, to not simply be a security product, but move into being a protection product. That is combining motion, temper, proximity, pressure, and attack, all of your key security aspects for any art collection, as well as lux, relative humidity, and temperature, all into the same system. So as I bring my first prop out, you'll see that these wireless tags, with their 10-year battery life, can combine all of those separate entities at once and feed all of that information back into a centralized piece of software, which can then be dispersed at the museum's will into the different aspects you have. Obviously, you don't want all of this separate data going to one person. The security staff might not be that interested in how much light is hitting a watercolor in Gallery 7. However, through the software, you can disperse that so the curatorial staff, the conservation teams, they're made aware constantly of different aspects of the things that they're responsible for, whilst the security guards can make sure that nothing's going walkies when it shouldn't. So looking at one of our larger museums, and I'm sure this is the case study that almost everyone at the M&H Fair uses, but the Louvre in Abu Dhabi happens to be one of the large museums that uses both our system and various other systems to great effect and is able to disperse and differentiate between security, protection, and preventative conservation incredibly efficiently. So with laser scanners and volumetric sensors and integrating into camera systems so that when Bettina at the back there pinches one of the paintings over here, the camera immediately spots her and there's playback in the control room. All the way through to making sure that the temperature, humidity, and light going on within the Louvre on each individual display case, on the back of each individual artwork, is sent through and then integrated effectively into the building management system so that the building itself can make holistic and autonomous changes to the environment into which those artworks are kept. As I'm sure most of you know, ASHRAE, the American Association for Heating and Refrigeration, has recently gone over their previous advice for the collection and automation of museum environments. No longer is it the guide that one should try and make sure that the huge building is kept at a constant temperature of 19 degrees or 42% humidity over the course of the 24/7 day and night period at great expense and unnecessary costs to both the museum and the environment in terms of having the HVAC unit constantly on or having the heating system come on in the middle of the night as the galleries cool, as there's no one in the galleries. It's now the advice that you should look to the artworks themselves and the individual microclimates within things like display cases or around certain types of artwork and various materials, and that should be your guide for how you keep your museum. It's interesting at this point to note that some of our partner firms like Key Culture and Cultural Innovations in Amsterdam have been working closely with the Rijksmuseum and using object-specific data from one of our competitors, in fact, but object-specific data to be able to let them know whether they need to make sure that the heating system on the Rijksmuseum in those huge major halls needs to be kept on 24/7, or whether by turning them off for 12 hours a day when the museum isn't populated, the artworks themselves retain the temperature at a fairly consistent rate, and that latent heat, that latent humidity that's kept within the building is effectively controlling the microenvironment around the artworks. So again, you can look to reducing your operational expenditure and start from the artworks up rather than from the building down. So going green and how one can do it is what I've already touched on, but essentially the idea is that you record, you deploy these assets and these tags at object level in your display cases on the back of the artworks, and you get multiple control points per room. Not simply a handwell system up in the top corner where the HVAC unit is, but one on that piece of 15th century panel or within that display case, making sure that the environment is contained and that data can be sent out to you wirelessly. Analyze and integrate. Obviously, data is only as good as the analysis that goes along with it. So the Fortecho enterprise software and similar pieces of software have powerful reporting tools allowing you to pull that information and run data analytics on the individual or groups of artworks. You can then integrate it, again through software with no human error, directly into your building management system, into your CCTV system, whatever it might be, so that as that information disperses to all the relevant members of staff in the museum, they're getting exactly what they need to do their jobs, rather than having to come cap in hand to the security team and ask for the information themselves. And finally, optimize. So using that analysis to enable efficient use of your resources and reduce your running costs. And doing this, as I say, from the artworks up, not from the building down, making sure that what the museums are designed to protect is what's governing the decisions made at the top level. So coming towards the end of the presentation, what's next for us specifically? We've most recently introduced lux readings into our tags, which you can see in the window here, essentially for the display case market, so that any high-risk objects in display cases can have these tags out in front of them, and that will read the lumens and be able to not only alarm when they go above or below what's acceptable, but also if the light is moving too quickly. Moving away from our museum clients into our private clients, this is very useful in case studies where there's a watercolor in an apartment in a New York skyscraper, and lo and behold, another skyscraper is built next to it, and suddenly the sun reflection off the second skyscraper is impacting the light hitting the watercolor in the first apartment. And so, from 3 o'clock till 3:45 in the afternoon, you're getting huge spikes in your software and not realizing. And then you go to it and realize that it's having a detrimental impact to the artwork itself. Further to that, we are developing new and exciting technologies. So with our display case partners at Mavet, Click Netherfield, and Gopian, we are looking to deploy chipsets within these tags that will monitor for inert environments to make sure that not only the temperature, humidity, and light hitting the artworks is acceptable, but also that there's no harmful chemicals that are entering into the environment and also causing some sort of detriment to it. Art in transit is the next part for us. We're developing tags and chips that will allow you to monitor the geolocation, the temperature, humidity, and the impact on artworks as they travel around the world. This will be a hardware with a much shorter battery life, looking just for the 6 weeks that something might be moving across the world, as opposed to the ones that we have in museums, which last for 10 years. And finally, what's coming next is going to be led by our clients. We've never once put the cart in front of the horse. We've always spoken to our both big and small private and public institutions to tell us what they most need from a system like ours that's down at the object level. Whether it was the Getty telling us they wanted light, or the National Gallery wanting to have relative humidity and delta change alarms, we went away and then built that. So we'd very much like to hear from yourselves, museum professionals, museum-adjacent businesses. If you'd come to the stand at D3 and let us know what you think the next stage in the evolution of this sort of technology would be, it'd be a great boon to us. And that, I think, finally a small list of some of our clients that have given us the permission to publicize them, and that will be the end of my presentation.
Stephen? Okay, I got to ask about the chip on the pictures.
The what?
The chip on the pictures. That was amazing.
These chips on the pictures?
Yeah.
What about?
How did you do it? In the frame, or?
Oh, how do we attach them to pictures?
Yeah.
Oh, right, yes. So it's a great question. How does one get these fairly obvious tags onto the artworks without ever seeing them? These are simply applied to the back of the frame. So we were lucky with the Wallace collection and the National Gallery here in London. They helped us design a polythene wallet with a VHB adhesive. And through that, we could attach it onto the back of stretchers or frames, and where it would sit without releasing any off gases or chemical breakdown.
Okay.
And interestingly, we have a little hole in these tags as well, which you might be able to see. Some museums simply like to screw them in. You'd be surprised that the National Gallery has a great deal of these tags just hammered into the back of the frames of these artworks, because they simply think it's the most effective way to protect the artworks themselves.
Okay. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Yes, sir. Come on, put it close.
Hi there. Hi, Jacob from Tate. I was just asking about the RFID, the proximity. How close do you have to be with your sensor to know where it is in a particular area? Do you do it through the entry and exit, or is it constantly knowing where it is in a certain space using another technology?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and something I can come on to talk more about by showing you sort of the full suite of the hardware. But essentially, the tags themselves are wireless, as I mentioned, and they're communicating with a network of readers dotted around the museum or gallery or house, wherever it might be. The tags aren't affiliated to any one reader, so should they set an alarm, then their location will be set in software by yourselves, i.e. the paintings should be where they are when you set them up and hang them. However, if they start moving around the building, you'll be able to determine their location by virtue of the signal coming from the nearest reader. So you can track it from east to west and north to south. You can't track it from GPS Tom Cruise-like dot within, because it doesn't have satellite communication. But as something moves throughout the museum, you can find out from the nearest reader that's picking up the signal how it's moving. And we've built that into our software so that the UX of that is basically just tracking the tag bobbling around the floor plans of your museum that you'd upload to the software at the beginning of the project. What?
Hi. Could you elaborate a little bit more on and give us examples of the benefits of OPEX? How it impacts?
I mean, yes, spending less money is obviously to everyone's advantage. So, as I mentioned, by gathering the data from the artworks, by gathering the data at multiple data points around the museum, you can determine whether it's really necessary to run these huge systems that take up the bulk of a museum's operational budget at all times, or whether you can actually effectively switch them off for large portions of the day or night and the artworks will still be kept at the latent temperature or latent humidity that they need to be kept at from your curatorial department's perspective. So it's more about operational expense in terms of how you manage the larger systems running there, and instead of that being governed by just 1 or 2 data points at a high level in a room, you're governing it by the needs of the artworks themselves and kind of re-engineering it, reverse engineering it, so that the artworks tell you whether you need to be spending X or Y on your HVAC or your heating or any other aspects of managing these large buildings. So yeah, that's essentially it. It's using that data to make those choices.
Any further questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Is it more about data, or is it more about security?
That's a great question. We like to think it's about both. So we use secure data. The encryption of these tags is 256-bit, and we use that data to then apply to security. So if this tag is to move, it has an accelerometer switch within it. You're going to get an alarm alerting you to the fact that X picture or X sculpture or whatever it might be is currently being moved and it shouldn't be, and you can respond to that threat. And they send out a heartbeat message every minute confirming their exact location. So again, all of this is data points, and then these tags are relatively dumb devices in terms of they are just producing that information. The Fortecho enterprise software is the intelligent piece. As a software house, you're then able to analyze and determine what is and what isn't a threat, whether it's too sensitive or not sensitive enough, whether it's reporting within the confines of acceptability, and whether that threat needs to be made aware to the curatorial team or the security team. So the software is data analytics running constantly on the data coming from the tags.
And does the museum have that automatically?
So we supply that to them.
Okay, so you data mine it.
Well, we build the software, but then the software will be deployed on site. So it will be given over to your IT team and then managed internally. We don't have any access to the data when it's deployed to your museum, obviously through GDPR and various other restrictions, and your security team not wanting to have backdoors into software houses. We don't have any of that. So we give it over lock, stock, and barrel to the museum. It's then managed and utilized by the museum to the effect that they want.
And in the States, it'll be HIPAA. It'll be HIPAA laws in the States?
It'll be what, sorry?
HIPAA?
Which was that?
It's GDPR.
Oh, yeah, exactly, yeah. Sorry.
It's the same thing.
I thought it was a museum.
No. Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Not at all. Thank you very much.